This video is made for adult collectors because bugs are gross.
Alright, so before I was gonna shoot the fancy intro for this thing, and I was planning it out before I write my script because that's just what I do. And I went to get Legacy Kickback off the Legacy shelf. Here he is, and what happened to him? He's broken. Like I can feel the crack in his chest or stomach or whatever, which is weird because he's literally just been sitting here the whole time. I don't touch him. So there goes knockout. I don't know why he broke. I don't know if it's because the temperature rapidly changed like this week going from +6 to -17. But, well, there he goes. That's fun.
Bugs are gross, but these are kind of cool. Kickback was, for some reason, the only one of the three to get a 2012 deluxe toy. Sharpshot and Hardshell never got figures, which is a shame, because this thing is so good. It would have been nice to get the others. Planet X has you covered with making the others, but like it would have been nice to get Hasbro versions. This figure though, bruh, it is great. There is so much to do with this guy and so much to like, and it makes the new one feel even more bland. The toy hacks help though. If you've never played Fall of Cybertron, I highly recommend you do. 360 and PS3 copies aren't too hard to find in the wild like physical editions, so go nuts, and it's a great game. And even if you aren't a fan of the overly buff aesthetic, this still kind of works for people like that. It doesn't really fall into that uber workout body shape those games had. Everything feels slim and bulky in all the right places, and it hits that sweet spot in balancing the aesthetic. He's also no slouch when it comes to color separation, a mixture of paint and parts that blend pretty well together to make the color separation work 10 times better than say on the Legacy one. However, the Takara one looks even better. God damn, I want that thing. Remember when they used to do different Takara and Hasbro editions? There are two different ways to do the wings. You can have them sticking up like this, which I personally don't like as much as taking the wings off and using them as weapons. That way you can bend the legs down and they look more like he did in the game. Intimidating and insect-like. The weapons are clipped onto the legs via 3mm clips, so anything 3mm compatible can work on those. He also has 5mm ports so they can fit in the hands, but this toy is weird with its 5mm ports. Just like the Legacy toy, he has multiple ports all over him. Hands, bug legs, back of the legs, and inner thigh? I don't get the ones on the inner thigh. Why are they there? I'm assuming this has to do with some feature that was removed because there's no mention of it in any instructions, nor does it actually do anything with the toy, unless they were going to make the other three and then do some sort of combination thing, and that is why there are ports on the inside of the thighs. But hey, you can weaponize the hell out of this thing. It's a bit awkward, but it is still fun. If all he came with was the melee weapons, I would have been happy, but this being a Fall of Cybertron toy, he comes with one of the weapons in game, and it just so happens to be my favorite heavy weapon, the Gear Shredder. This weapon was great in the game because if you had it fully upgraded, you could see where your discs were going to go and they could bounce off everything and kill multiple people with one shot. It was okay in multiplayer, but it was great in campaign. This version is quite oversized and does fire one disc, albeit very poorly. It also has 4 5mm ports on it, so even more weapon stickage. You can turn it into a crossbow, and that's totally just Vakama's disc launcher from 2004. I can't be the only one who sees that. The head sculpt is super intimidating and does kind of harken to that Prime design, which makes this guy feel to me like one of the only aligned figures to actually have any consistency between pieces of media, because the whole thing was just an unnecessary afterthought hodgepodge. But his face reminds me a lot of the Insecticon face from Prime, so they at least feel like they could fit in the same universe. His posing too, for the time, it's a lot, and it's great. So back in like 2012 and around that time, posability wasn't like the biggest I mean, it was a big selling point, but nowadays the toys we get are really focused on that articulation. Like even stuff like this is extremely articulated. But this was an era where that wasn't really the case all the time. Like waist joints, ankle pivots, wrist swivels weren't common on every figure. They were on a lot, but they weren't on every single thing. But this guy is packed full of like posing that you wouldn't expect from a 2012 toy. Starting with the head being on a ball joint. However, a little limited when looking up just because of the light piping. You can do left and right. You can tilt it a little bit and it can look down, which kind of works because he's evil. These are also on a ball joint and a hinge, so you can get them out of the way.
Shoulders rotate on a ball joint. These do get in the way, but they do move as well. So you can bring them up if you want to do that, which is really nice. You got in and out as well at the shoulder pad. So that's pretty cool. Ball jointed elbow, so that allows for both the swivel and a bend at 90 degrees. You get a wrist swivel. Little hard to activate with this thing, which does not lock in, so it likes to move, which is a little annoying. But you got a wrist swivel there. Nothing at the waist because it splits in half. Hips are on ball joints, and all of this is really stiff, by the way, and he was used. So that's pretty good. You got thigh rotation right there. Single jointed knee that bends just under 90, but if you want a little bit more, you can bend this out to get a tiny bit more knee bend, but not by much. And then this is what blew me away, the ankles. You got down, you got up. And because it is on a second hinge as well as a ball joint, you get up at the ball joint and then even more up at the hinge, which is awesome. And then you have ankle pivot, really deep ankle pivot too, and because it's on a ball joint, you can do that and pull it off. You can swivel it, which is just awesome. Like, he's super posable, a lot more posable than this. I mean, this has a waist joint, yes, but this does not have the ankle articulation nor the wrist articulation that this thing has, which makes me like this even more than that. This is fine, other than he's broken, but it's just fine. I much prefer the posing options on this. He looks more dynamic, therefore he can get more dynamic. Yay.
So if I had to pick a kickback, just going off robot modes, I'm going follow Cybertron all day. Like, they even detailed the inside of his shoulder pads. Like, that's so sick. Come on. This one's transformation is a lot more involved than the Legacy one, using a very interesting split and swing around technique to form the bug mode torso, and the abdomen is the arms. Then the front legs don't really click into place anywhere, but they slot themselves in rather satisfyingly into their final resting position, and that's great. I do wish the back legs pegged in though, somehow. Cricket / locust / gross flying thing mode, whatever, is a bit more messy than the robot mode, but it's a lot nicer to me than this thing. It's bigger and it's bulkier and it's a lot more intimidating, which just fits an Insecticon for me. Not to mention the 4 front legs look very bug-like with the hairs and the 2 toes on them. The back legs though, I do take issue with.
So the biggest issue I have with this thing's stability is these legs, because they don't tab in anywhere, like on the side here, and I feel like they need to, because they move around at this joint, and I would rather them just move at this joint. But because they move around at this as well, it sometimes can be hard to like get him all lined up properly and sitting there, and then these come undone, and it's just a whole mess sometimes. It's like this a lot, where you're trying to like get everything to line up properly and stay. But this one it's a little bit easier with. This one it's a little bit more difficult because of how this is set up, and it does make it a tad bit annoying to try and mess with. That, and you can't really get him into any good like off the ground poses, so he looks a little bit more like a mess, and it's hard to tell that he's a bug unless you know what this is, or you don't see the little bug hair thingies on his arms. But yeah, that can be a little bit annoying. Sometimes it's just trying to get all this lined up, and it frustrates me.
The gun can slot over its wings here, and that looks kind of ridiculous, so I just leave it off to the side. And even though this one has more posable wings because they're on ball joints, it does that dreaded kickback thing where every kickback does this, and it does not allow you to flap the wings out.
That impromptu, this is not part of the script. I did realize something as I was shooting the shots for the alt mode. The thigh ports are exposed, so you could take the wings off their little C-clips there. See, the legs are doing that thing again. And then peg them into here. Let's see how this looks. I haven't actually seen what this looks like. That's okay. That's not the greatest, but at least now he has his wings out. I just wish these could like go out this way, because it would have been nice. He also had, I think, 4 sets of wings in the game. This works, I guess. No. I would have preferred flappable wings still.
I'd love to get him into a flying pose, but no kickback figure I've ever handled has the ability to do that, and that's a shame, because in the game, he's like that, and in Rise of the Darksparks, I believe you play as him in Rise of the Darksparks, but you could see him flapping his wings, and it would have been so nice to get him on a stand with his wings out, but shame you can't do that. I don't know if the Planet X one does. I might get it at some point, I don't know. But in the end, I love this thing. It's such a nice toy and all around just a great time. I definitely recommend it. If you can find it for like 30 bucks used, that's like the max I'd pay used, then I would say go for it. But that's my look at, what is his name? Generations 2012 Kickback. I'm stupid. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.